Right, it's too late. Too late. Fireworks. Yeah. Independence Day. Independence Day.
Okay. Yes.
Lama Tamba Chomden de Dejin Jabba Da Chomba Yanda Ba Zobe Zain Riva Da Shazu Damba Tewa Jabba Jiten Gemba Kibu Due Kalo Lana Meba Lada Menange Tumba Sange Chomden Bagawa Shaka Tubala Chasa Mochi Lama Damba Chomde Deshi Shaba Da Jomba Yanda Ba Zobe Riba Dan Shatsu Damba Dewa Shaba Chidin Gibu Due Kalo Gyoba Lana Meba Lada Sange Bhagawa Shakya Tubala Chudo Gas Che Lama Tamba Chom De Deji Shaba Chom Yanda Ba Sope Sange Riba Shatu Dewa Shaba Jide Gemba Geba Dewe Kalo Lana Meba Lada Minange Tamba Sange Chomde Bhagava Shakya Tupala Chasa Chudo Kyatsu Chiao Akanse Kanye So Kyotande Sachen Dela Gomba Tumbon Ngani Jiten Dina Choshe Dede Keba Kyola Cha Selo Namda Kunga Choto Zuzangwa Ishi Gyato Seke Lambota Taba Jiten Sumna Lambewa Kombo Chonye Kyola Cha Sel Senjo Demba Dime Tawe She Sedo Tawa Kyola Cha Sel Dude Gyuda Sipa Sumachi Nyame Genje Gyala Cha Selo Kombo Tuje Chidemba Tamje Gembe Dumba Bo Sena Yende Gato Shin Teji Shala Cha Selo Dabe Deja Dewa Gyo Gewe Ngenson Liduji Chitu Dundan Chuyo Ba Shigo Chala Cha Selo Tene Tuwe Layate Laba Dala Yenden Den Gendun Ayan Cha Selo Deba Chia Mija Shin Gewa Puzun Soba Che Rangi Semni Yonzu De Dine Sange Dembai Kama Rabri Mame Dan Gyuma Zeba Choda Nilang Godan Tinda Bu Duje Chen Ita Ta Zanan Diye Tamche Zebai Koban Tomne Kyungi Tatu De Kada Nada Jive Tatu Sibe Sole Droa Droa I prostrate to the three noble rare sublime ones. Oh, thus did I hear one time the Bhagavan was dwelling on massive Vajra's mountain in Rajagriha together with a great community of monks and a great community Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also, at that time, the Bodhisattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage to produce the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra and his son, daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like correctly and repeatedly, beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent need. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than empty. Same way, feeling, discrimination, composition of factors and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness without characteristic, unproduced, unsustained, without stain, not division, not book. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition, no factor. No I, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no burn. There is no I element and so on up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance. So on up to and including no aging and death and no extinction of aging, and similarly there is no suffering, origination, cessation, but there is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the endpoint of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifested completely awakened to unsurpassed perfect, complete with light, in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as true, since it is not. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared Daya Daum Gate Gate Para Gate Para Sangate Bodhi Soha Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that one should practice the profound perfection of, just as you have indicated, even the Tathagatas reach. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of God's humans, Asur Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly spoke by the Bhagavan. Kala jubine jo dambane ngje tu nga we tu to chendro ba bola mai puji leson Khandro so chaselo aka samaraja sharara samaraya pe aka samaraja. Akasamara Shadara Samarai Peta Gate Gate Para Gate Para Sangate Bodhi Soha Papa Kunjo Zungi Kai Tembe Topi Chi Toba Gyöji Meba Gyöji Shewa Gyöji Dage Baji Mitumbi Choring Emba Tamche Shin Guru So ha geri tondra geju jewa da mutum kendan drawa dan tumba drubjin bunzu zoyu be tashi te kyanten tele jo Ojinga jo on benza pume aho wanjin zegi zaji on benza leki aho ji jari koyu giko et usu ri gyabori rap shali babolo zambuli no balanje jan raminian ludan mayaljen Yodin dalan jodo taminian dan taminian geta Rimboche Rio Paz Samgishin Deje Yeba Mamu Payeloto Kolo Rimboche Novo Rimboche Sambo Rimboche Lambo Rimboche Lambo Rimboche Tacho Rimboche Mabu Rimboche Dejembe Bumba Gema Changwa Ma Lu Ma Karama Medo Ma Dubu Ma Nazema Dijama Nyema Da Rinpoche Do Jale Namba Ya zenye uzu lada mi paja punzun soba masum sanjin yidu wanwa dida tenjin sawa tangyu ba chebe pelden lama tamba namdan kyeba tuyan yonzo timbe ngada tengi ledu zene mudi Jesu lama lozan towan doji chai jembo ranjo najo makandro sere rimbo je pe zambu shengan taba jembo sunju zamu lepa jue yandu shingam vayo tuze drowe tandu jesu Jene yanda zo drowa magyo nanke tada nyambe semjen tamje la tuze wa chembe kone jingil. Oh, Nama. Yeah. Ayo. Ah, yeah. Ah,
Tambe chudambo de nyamzulu jam. So, tini danga tsu sanje chusumai. Tini jamdru da simji. Ani digi zi zimbitone. Namjundu ra tenda. Teringa yang tsu rolling da chushi. Che 이제 rolling chiala yang. 타이비 심전 탐지 가정 괜히 나지. 아니 타르바타 탐지 진배 공부. 더쇼 런진 심전 탐지. 전주기 심 줄여져야다. 아니 양답에 따와 줄여져야 체더라. 되는 가서 같이 년시 책임이 대체더라. 되는 아니 그런 넘버를 다 봤지. 심전 탐지 편받다 대위체더인 되는 그런 넘버를 다 봤지. 아니 설때로나
Asana. So, the aspects of refuge and bodhicitta are always necessary. It's something that we do every single day, all the time. Going for refuge, generating bodhicitta, the altruistic mind of enlightenment. And so here as well, this is our final day of teachings. And so as we begin our discussion, please bring to mind limitless sentient beings, countless sentient beings, and the wish to lead them to freedom and the state of omniscience. And, in order to do that, we have to develop genuine bodhicitta and the authentic view within our mind stream and gain certainty in that. And so in that way, please form the completely pure motivation to bring benefit and happiness to all sentient beings. So please establish that motivation in your mind.
그래서 단 되는 거다. 바로와 다지 가르쳐로 다 지당으로 치고는 한 능바 이미 나야 돼. 다 잠로이 거네. 예와 친구도 잠로 대성장 가성 기능 가서 이게 다 로또 남지 됐으대. 다지 오늘 전에 가서 능바 다지 sarpa yugonanda Khangdar tachi luxo saba yugonanda ta Khangda rijung saba yugonanda eso yi kajen saba yugona Khangdar ta loto namjite tang ani dinji chungode ani sosogi 당보 지 조사 메도 미롱아지 개천부지 자들에
Nasala. And so today, we will, discuss the topic of liberation. And in general, as we, we've kind of touched these topics when we approach liberation. And so we begin with refuge, going for refuge, seeking protection. And also the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, the 4 mind changings. So these one would normally go through. And, if one really wants to be a Buddhist, whether we're new to the Buddha Dharma and we want to enter the tradition, really, actually, there's normally a entry point to anything, right? If we want to so if we want to study a new topic, we have to enter somewhere. If we want something we really want or like, if we want to get that, we need to start to approach it from somewhere. There's an entry point. And so when it comes to the Buddha Dharma, it is like these 4 thoughts that turn the mind, these 4 mind changings that we've been discussing, and the 4 noble truths, the Dharma wheel of the 4 noble truths. So as a first point of entry, as our gateway into actually becoming a Buddhist, these are indispensable. They are so very important. The 4 noble truths and the 4 thoughts that turn the mind.
Enji chuke male ninji ina teni yodo namji teso de hakona asusu sem kuyangbo dang enji kanda karjugoro da sem na jik jiza zinje yoba des nenga hahoya la kechimbo yore.
So whether we're familiar with like formal Buddhist terminology or not, if we understand the contents of these 4 thoughts that turn the mind, then our mind will become very open-minded. And within that, it's important to understand a few key points.
Te tamjiloa chundu yungdu susula 동해 만들바다 대완대비 니중간에 동해 rakpa 대저기 빵당 가래샤 동해 rakpa 진당 가래샤 유유견이 토네 제바 가르치네 아니 동해대 빵고도 가르치네 네 가르쳐서 대바대 죽고기도 아니 데즈디 럽 자세 하고기도.
So if we bring all of these kind of together in a concise way, then kind of summarize them, and then we can bring them into the point that each person does not want to suffer. Every person wants happiness, and we can examine the coarse forms of suffering, how they can be abandoned, how clinging functions in these coarse forms of suffering, how through the relationship of a subject and an object, suffering can be abandoned, and how happiness can be accomplished. So we can get like a general overview of that.
아니 덴바지 대추 누바이나 아니 양 덴바니인가라 춘드 한 덴바니 라이다 추지그레나 다 덴바니 라이디 ngacho 남준드 ngacho 냠도 라예데와 십대와 디나네 수수기 관리나 백해침버랜다 근접 덴바 전담 덴바 슬란 다 ngacho 근접 덴바디 다 근접 라양다 니갑지 마타비 근접디 nga 저기 롱 쬐다 쬐진 바지 레드로 전담 덴바 세 레용디 되니 찍요 찍 매와 니치지 이나랑 아니 찍초 찍den기 니치 찍 하고 그도가 찍초 찍대 거면서 때아
That's so. So
파덴 주된
that's so.
전담이요나 근접이요나 전담이요 예념 매념 뭐나
Oh, that's so. That's so. So to speak about the Four Noble Truths in a very concise way, they can kind of be reduced down to the two truths. And so in the two truths, it's important, whether we're familiar with terminology or not, it's important that we come to a clear understanding in a kind of our own ordinary language of what the two truths mean. And so these two truths, we have what is called the relative truth and the ultimate truth. And that which we call the relative truth involves, temporary, impure experience that all of us have, that we continue to experience. And when we talk about the ultimate truth, there's an aspect of, how it exists. There's also an aspect of how it does not exist. And understanding how these depend on each other and how they function in the world. And so the one depends on the other, the existence and the non-existence.
나서 되니 가서 단 저자도 타르바 인자 되니 타르바 라이데 다 니가 타투 니나 직 샤와이나 지기도.
So the main topic today is the topic of liberation. And so we can talk about liberation in two basic senses, temporary liberation and final liberation.
타르바 세디 동행리 탈고 그러와. 동행리 탈루 니가 타르바. 제가 용초 그러와. 빼라지나. 지또그땀 안에 지니 목이기 찡대바데 양태직 네가 별송이나 그 내리 타르바. 아니 또글리 타르바. 동행 딜리 네가 지 동행 찍리 양 타르바 제가 자초야도와.
So when we speak about, liberation or freedom, we need to be free from suffering, liberated from suffering. And so it's possible in a temporary sense. For example, getting some kind of food or clothes or, success. And then, coming out of sickness, coming out of hunger, for example, brings a sort of temporary liberation. If we're hungry and we come out of that state, we're liberated from that hunger. If we're sick and we come out of that sickness, we're liberated from that sickness. So for temporary forms of suffering, it's possible to have a temporary freedom or liberation from that.
대난진다 니kap시 타르바 타르투기 타바 다 단다 맞추기 저자데 타르투기 타바 전담반디 간디스 예메 가와 예메 디다 돌렌지야로
So, in that way, we can make this distinction between temporary freedom and final freedom. And so the topic we're here to discuss is the final freedom, which is connected to the ultimate. And so how is that? How is that final freedom? Where is that final freedom found? That is what we will discuss.
타르발라야디 찌리 시샤라 여르베스란 맞아 저직 연그러와 시샤라 타르바줘야디 가와 여르베스 타르바 타르발라야디 찌리 시샤라 시샤 꾼라 아니 랑신디 차도리 여르 시시기 니룩데 또서는 타르아레
Oh,
오케이
so so liberation then, where is it to be found in the general, knowable things, the general objects that can be known? How does it relate to that? Basically, if we realize the nature of anything that can be known, any knowable object, if we can realize the nature of things that can be known, liberation is there.
예전디 타르발라야디 그 같이 그러다 동일이 테르바 아니 가서 동일이 찡들어와 아니 디 찡월레 절송나 타르바 아니 네 디니 코르베 네네 아니 절송나 타르바 다 강더 산지 좀 된디지 되니 덴바지 중고 송네 아니 그저로 동보 동에 되니 근중 람 곡대 라야디 땡용도 타르바티 곡배 덴바 라야디 타르바티 송도와 땅 곡배 덴바 그래 가르치네니 심 가저로 동에 곡그래서나 아니 중고님바 장고 풍배를 자 전부 들으라 아니 시럽지 다 자무 동반이지 된듯이 동니기 된듯이 아니 배 자침보 땡자고 손유거도와 디송네 아니 공기 다지 가져로 계속 자침보 아니 콘다 냠바 자침보들이 아니 병금 봐발루주 되니 다와 잡발라 소바기 되니 기줍 닌데지 지부 담바 삼제 메쳐봐 된제는 나는잖아 아니 가져로다 되성 공성 야마셔봐 체네 되니 고나바기 투모마이베 아니 수수기 어쩌지 잠블링나 리치 강지 라이다 투모마이베기 아니베 우말라 케바 투모마이베지 아니베 세말라 케바 투모마이베지 아니 시체치나 가져로 돼 글쎄 디 맞아 전죽쌤이 꼬르트즈디 강달 지 소소소소기 롭종 나왔나니 투모 많이 베제니 지 맞아지 녀모 자디 간디스 좀 거고요 아니 낭니 마티바 가리임바 네바 가리임바 나와 가리임바 차이 차와지 맞으게 쌤데 차라 여바 인정 되니 또시 최진라요 차라 대 동이지 로태양 니갑라 지 카르조르다 응은지 제당 문자와 숙정부 쉬우지 용기도와
Nasana.
제당 항달 짜치고 쉬우 지송이전도와
Nasana.
다르바 이제 가르쳐그러다 맞아 돈이 따와 또거나 되네 다 시친지 용도도 따거래 세네 아니 라마카딘제 나바제 공바 송용도 다 맞은디 용망부지 따 맞어봐 이나 맞아 드링 테스트 디디지 전화로 뭔가
Nasana.
되죠다
Yes. So this topic of liberation or freedom involves separating from suffering. And because now we are bound up by suffering, we're constrained or bound by suffering. And so to come out of that binding, that constraint, is the meaning of, freedom or liberation. Also, we can speak about it in terms of being freed from the all the abodes of samsara. If we're freed from all the abodes of samsara, that is also liberation. And so Shakyamuni Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths. He introduced suffering. He introduced the cause of suffering. He introduced the path, and he introduced the truth of cessation. And it's in the truth of cessation that liberation is introduced. And so that truth of cessation, if we examine that, what is it? What is the truth of cessation? How does suffering cease? And so, in many extraordinary teachings, including at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a very precious assembly of disciples, many great beings, and of course the Buddha also present in an extraordinary gathering. The Buddha taught very profound teachings on emptiness, a vast, profound explanation of emptiness. And, based on that, many extraordinary learned and accomplished masters like Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, and many, many others, beings who were learned and accomplished, who participated in the great tradition of Nalanda, whose study, reflection, and meditation were carried out in a unified way. And so, based on that, many extraordinary and special, teachings and commentaries emerged. The experts on Madhyamaka, the view of the middle way, the experts on pramana, the subject of logic and epistemology, the experts on paramita teachings, the nature of the mind of awakening or bodhicitta. And so all of these, bringing them into practice, how we can apply them in practice, they should be applied in a way that tames the internal enemy of the kleshas, of the afflictive emotions. And so we have to figure out how to do that. And we have to explore the apparent reality and the underlying reality. In other words, how do things appear? How do we perceive things? And what is their actual nature? What is their actual reality? So we have to look into that. And the mind has many subtle and coarse dimensions. And therefore, and in a similar way, what is to be realized, the nature of phenomena, can also be realized in coarse and subtle ways. And so within the mind, the way of apprehending and identifying emptiness by the mind, there are many different special ways that can be done. So these are all very important teachings.
Lasso te inzane da ngazo yang din namba ji sanjin da chanju sembagi sung za chenbo dezo yang dayaji tuzu mebe zora teni ji kan karita rang la tuzu yuna shenyen tangba gengen mebe zora daji mawu tunje mawu chik yang kala kako chagi yoba jadwa.
So Khandro-la said before also, so if we want to realize emptiness, it is often instructed to examine the paramita, teachings, like the wisdom prajna paramita teachings. But, if we're not able to study those kinds of texts extensively, then we can also learn by discussing it. And so these precious teachings given by Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, we don't often feel like we have a lot of time. And so, the question comes a lot, what should I read? I don't have so much time. Where to start? What should I read? It's difficult, without the guidance of a teacher, of a wise spiritual friend. It's difficult to find them and to get that guidance.
당은 저지 소소이 semnon samno yagozi tane. 당원에 tarba topju yowazi na nibardo. 나는지 다 딜라 버전치 체네 samno 당자바이나. 되는 가서 뭐스 근접 덴바 라야 되다. 담담 덴바 라야 돼. 가래래. 타지지야래.
So then we can look into our own mind, each of our own minds, and consider if, liberation is possible to attain, if freedom is something that is possible to attain, then we have to, directly look into and observe the relative truth and the ultimate truth. What are they? Kongi kaparagi gondas hakomasons. So these are topics that we need to search for. We have to find out what those are.
Tani sanje jomden degi nga tsogi simi rangjin de ani ani tebe yuande ani kadzoro da tangma gokpe temba za chenpo chi yore selani ha je chadwa ha je ni song yore wa nga tsola
Oh, takchi.
Mm.
Lasso, rela.
ni wa di kenza yeah.
So then the Buddha Shakyamuni, he also taught that in the very nature of our mind, there is the truth of cessation. The truth of cessation is there within the nature of our minds. This, has been resolved.
nhokra chishu de nga tso kunzop temba layande nga tso gi zindang karesha.
The main problem, maybe, perhaps our main problem is, within the relative truth, how does our clinging work? How do we cling to the relative truth?
Then kan nawa ji kunzop de ane rangjin drupa tembar zine kan nawa tarang den temba zine da karang da lo jinda meba de tembare tene tela chakpa ane tela shemba ane je yongdo.
And so whatever appears to us, everything we perceive and experience is, the relative, in the relative. And we are confused about its nature. We cling to it as true and real. We think this is real. And then we get attached to it. And then we grasp onto it.
다 nhokra tsangma gozoga di thoni yungro.
And then that's the beginning of big problems.
Di kare yungre di khandi chegi duksena yang di la ji loi yowe thoni lo di rikpa inanda kharzo ta ji kare nandi sheba de marikpa korang sheba de di yungoi ni chu simjenji sheba zi shirapzi pechu donggo yore de shirapzi pechu donggo yore ngaso 이게 나와지 통기도 나와 링링지 통해야지 통이지 로지도 통사 유지가 도 대샤바시 통고여라 유연히 통고여라 아 디샤바디 아니 그 샤바디 다들 괜찮아요 양 샤바디기 통용도 양 짐바 젬바 중니기 로지 야총 괜찮으래 셰바 돈이 나야 돼 찌땅게 셰바 나야 돼 셀점 릭점 제니 셰고 나지 당마 셰고 이리 와 셰고디 당위 찬을 나인다 셰바티 당위 찬 셰바티 요 찬이 나게매 당위 찬이나 셰바디 셰고 나진지나 데니 죽진 강야이나 코컬 짜용기도 디 종년지 통기로 종년지 통기로 거라 셰바디 종년 통년이 셰바직도 다 딜라 짐바 중니지 요와 요 룽다 데리기 짐바 착바 중니기 디 이브리 디 카도레 디 장레 디 녜레라네 코레 냠돌라 출了추자 나지기 짐바 유자 중니 직도아 다 녀크라데 티기
So so how does this problem occur? Where does the problem come from? We can say that the mind moves, or the mind wavers, the conceptual mind wavers. And so our consciousness is, develops ignorance, has ignorance, ignorant of the true nature of reality, how things actually are. So, of course, we have native prajna in the sense of intelligence or discernment. All sentient beings use their intelligence or discernment. And in fact, within our cognizance or consciousness, within our knowingness of the mind, there's this, we have this knowingness. We can know the object. We can know emptiness. There is a cognizance there that has that capacity. But our knowingness, our consciousness is a very strange thing. When we see things, when we apprehend or perceive things, then somehow this element of grasping, clinging occurs. This dualistic conceptual mind occurs. Actually, what we call knowingness or consciousness, actually in itself, it is just lucid, just knowing and lucid, just clear and aware, like a crystal. Crystal. And so here we're speaking about like the pure aspect of knowingness or consciousness. And so we're not talking about the moving aspect at this moment. We're talking about the pure aspect of clear and aware. And so the way a crystal functions, like a polished crystal, is that it can reflect things very, very clearly. And so like different forms are reflected lucidly in a pure crystal, consciousness or knowingness can reflect things within itself. It is like a pure crystal mirror. And so, however, what occurs in the case of clinging, when clinging arises, it arises due to movement or wavering. We could call it lung or prana. Moves, and then clinging and attachment occur. And then we start to, the different aspects that are appearing within them, we start to make distinctions and label and apprehend them. Oh, that's the shape. Oh, that's the color. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's bad. And then we cling. And that leads to big problems.
세상 딘리기 다 강다르 맞춰 로 출바. 로 출반디 아니 마릭바 라야디. 로 출바디 가리 용어도 라나 마릭바. 마릭바디 아니 가리라 마릭바. 마릭바 라야디 뭉바 계자. 왜 니주 마통와 계자래다. 왜 니주 마통한디 다리 가서 근접 댐바다 전담 댐바 라야저와. 딩왜 니주 가리 임바디 통고요 말다. 마릭바기 왜 니주 마통네 최 탐제네 랑지 주바 들점 요마 랑지 주바 랑원이 주바 댐바 주바 들점 매발라 아니 댐바 주반진 디 마리고 차서 겐도 첨부 차서 댐바 주바 랑지 축두바 주바 매베지 딱 봐봐 축두바지 취지자 요 말와 댐바 주베 뭐고 따지 랑신 주바도 당가 좀 마릭바티 진단라 가족이 안에 차단기 로 제사데 이 마릭바기 고조 용도 마릭바기 안에 가서 차단 제사지 마릭바디기 다 코랑 지 니추 아니 출 데니 람이 니추 출 데니 제비 니추 출류되나 아니 이 춘저도 아니 그 가져로 그 마릭바기 따와 춘저래 아니 람 춘저리 쨀바 춘저래 데니 제비 디 아니 박샤들 레용도 아니 동이 제네다 덴리기 춘고 되게 걸어와 이 추르와 서로와 동이 대바 랭가 잠지 여바이나 대양 딱바 때문에 완전히 랑지 딘디디 창망로와 이제 마릭바이 고조와 인자 템바 메발라 아니 템바 준 칭의 번이 주이나 칭의지 가져로 응감지 리기나 템바 주바 들잠메바 낭 생감지 리기나 템바 주바 랑지 주바 들잠메바 디 창말로와 강 여대비 근접대 아니지 땡땡베 랑지인바 템바 주바지 여나 아니 땡고 말아 술 땡고 템바 주잖아 띵중당 개발해
맞습니다. 맞습니다. So we talk about how the mind, the dualistic conceptual mind, is confused. And so what is our dualistic conceptual mind confused about? What is this confusion? Fundamentally, it is ignorance, not knowing. So what are we ignorant of? What is it that we don't know? There's an element of darkness. We do not see how things truly are, the true reality. And so, there are these elements, the relative truth and the ultimate truth. So actually, the true reality is that there's not even a particle of completely true, real, inherent existence. And yet, towards what lacks that inherent existence, we apprehend it as truly real, truly established. And so what has no true reality, what has not even a particle of inherent, independent, true existence, we reify it, take it as real, solidify it, believe in it. That is ignorance. Towards things that have, no permanence in them, we cling to things as lasting and certain and permanent, to things that don't have those qualities. And so this kind of misunderstanding, taking what is not actually truly real, inherently real, as truly real, we have what's called ignorance about the ground. And based on that ignorance about the ground, all kinds of attachment and aversion are generated. And so when we're confused about the true nature of the ground, then we have confusion about the true nature of the path. And we have confusion of the true nature of the result. And so when we have ignorance, our view is confused. Our meditation is confused. Our conduct is also confused. And then in the end, when the imprints of that ripen, we get suffering. And that creates samsara. And samsara is full of confusion. And the beings in samsara continuously experience suffering. And so, and of course, everything there is constantly changing every single moment. Nothing is reliable. And so all of that comes from taking what is not truly true as true. Taking what is not truly real as truly real. And so actually, wherever we look, whether we look deeply through the material sciences, or whether we look deeply into the inner mind, we can't find even a hair's tip of independent, inherent, true existence. Not even a hair's tip of independent, inherent, true existence. And so all of the relative reality, all of the relative truth is just contingent. It's just dependent. Everything depends on other things. If something had true independent existence, it wouldn't need to rely on other things. And so we approach the truth of dependent arising.
내 인상 맞추기 다 소소 동의 만들어 인자네 동의기 그 다 동의 직 차라 망부지 여러와 다 단단 아주 라위안데 동의 삼제지 싸와데 그래슬라니 다 싸왕하네 다 당지 마리바 흰지 마리바에 니수카네 에 맞춰 깨차 시용도 아니 동의기 싸와디 다 매바 지하기 탑다 동의기 싸와디 매바지 차송아이나 되는 거죠 다 동의 저에게 가서로 짜점 매바 아니 동의 남영 용 마시바지 빼라지나 맞죠 아 독이 신지여나 그러봐 다디 독이 바하고 아니 소소디 독신데 만들어봤어요 디 독이 신데 직 로마다 야르카다 데데 짱마시 다 독신 힘바 하고네 아니 로마다 야르카데서 짱마시네 제바이나 아니 소소기 직툭 맞아 이게 탑데서다 레데 에나양 독데 메와치 두고 말아 따직 짜와니 코랑기 짜와니 바꿔잖아 되니 독디양 내가라나 양자 독디지야 신디 독신디에 차야 메와 짜와니 꼬토나 빼요 자성아 짜와니 꼬 맞나 야르칸다 로마라고 되니 직 제대바이나 고 다다 제기면 돼 나중에 가서 단다 찍대서 혹하고 이래야 직지나 가war라고요 하마고다 혹하고다 데스 nhập thôi rồi 이나야 남주 도나요 말아 다 동에 되게 매나 동에게 짜와들라 아주 도나셔야 돼 개침버려
So each of us, you know, since we do not want to suffer, then we have to look into its cause. Because there's many coarse and subtle types of suffering. And we can also take the perspective of looking into the root of all suffering, the fundamental root of all suffering. And that is self-grasping and ignorance. Ignorant about the true nature of reality. And, you know, so if we can get some kind of method to completely eradicate the very root, the fundamental root of suffering, then even the word pain or suffering will not be heard. Then suffering, it will be impossible for suffering to arise again. So maybe to use an example, we can think of like a poisonous tree. And so if we know that a particular kind of tree is a poisonous tree, then, you know, we can understand to avoid it. We can understand that everything that grows and is produced by that tree has a certain poisonousness. All the branches, all the leaves, whatever fruit it produces, we can, if we know that the tree is a poisonous tree, we can avoid the tree and everything associated with the tree. But we haven't like eliminated the root of the poison, you know, because if we don't get to the very root and eliminate the root, completely uproot the tree or eliminate or destroy the roots of that tree, then it can always grow back again. And so I know this is a kind of a, but if we can completely uproot the tree, totally eliminate the root, then that's something really great. So I know these are difficult. It's a difficult topic. It's a difficult words. You may not understand all of these words. Maybe you're getting a little bored. This isn't a topic that we normally talk about in normal conversation. But if you don't want to suffer, it's important to take interest in this kind of discussion.
제장 다 마릭바 라야티기 진당 디기 토네 아니 응니지 ngazogi 미치나라 다오 군접 덴바 라야기 예데바 데나 된담 덴바 데닌델라다 수수기 군접 덴바 라야디 롱 가르스 쪼거레 세나 셈진지기 아니 친질로이 따와 지 토네 다 롱제기도 롱제당저데 출당저데 마릭바이기 왕첸 친질로이 따와 디기 땅 가서 셈제 친질로이 따와 뇨모 독숨라는 대샤제당 띠묵 디디기 황ዣ주기 황 가서데 제왈렌데야 대양 라완도 가서 제왈렌메바 디 코르바나라 제왕도 제왈레니 황야주 황니데 수레 마 황니 황하고도 황니데 수레에서는 마릭바 딱트 짐베 마릭바기 데네 딜리 찍네 대차 레 데네 셰당 대차 셰당 띠묵기 자와체네 대차 셰당 아니 ngaje 콘돌라 속버디 상말로 독응아데 용사더데 비지 마릭바나니 용기도와 ngoi nisu matoma tem marikbalana temba matruba matoni temba zindeni chu tamjini dendrupsu zindeni ta di lonje de kharje gdu usala tawa chinjilo tawa je lonje ta lonje dang de khare ta khathudang de khare lonje dang khare silana ta ngazo di chikson da tambo
So yes. So then with our ignorance, how do we grasp? The way we grasp, the way we fail to apprehend the true nature of reality and how this functions in our life. And so, we have the relative truth and the ultimate truth. And so in terms of the relative truth, how do we experience that? What is our experience of the relative like? And so basically, we have a distorted view. We have a distorted understanding. And through that, then we have experience. We experience through and with a distorted understanding or view. And so how are we confused? How does confusion work? How do we experience in this way? So basically, from ignorance, and the confusion, then all sentient beings, it's like their understanding involves the kleshas, the afflictive emotions, attachment, aversion, delusion. And through that, we all take rebirth again and again, not with control. We take rebirth out of control. It's like something else is propelling us. We don't have our own freedom or independence. So what is it that is propelling us? It's ignorance. And, ignorance that clings and apprehends an inherent self. And so from that, we get all of the afflictive emotions, attachment, anger, delusion, pride, and so on, the 5 poisons. And then we carry out activities with the 5 poisons. And where do they come from? Where do the 5 poisons come from? They come from ignorance. And so ignorance doesn't see the true nature as not inherently, doesn't see the lack of inherent reality. And so not seeing that absence of inherent reality, then we cling to it as real. And we believe it's real and true. And so this is what is meant by like a distorted view, a distorted understanding. And so what kind of experience then comes? How are we confused?
Then chưa tham ji mida bi rang ji yina lang. Tang zin gi lo shuk chen bo je ne ene cha dang je ne yang chik chur de gi do.
All phenomena are impermanent, have the nature of change. But towards all phenomena that have the nature of impermanence, we cling to them as lasting and permanent. And through that kind of clinging, attachment and aversion arise. So this is one kind of confusion.
Dendri gi cha dang zi ul temba tu rang kala ane cha yen je ne e cha dang lo ti shuk chen bo zi. Je ne ane nyok ra chik so gi do tang bu di.
And then, through thinking that things are real, they're actually real and true, then attachment and aversion arise, strong attachment and aversion. Through clinging to things as really true, strong attachment and aversion. So then one problem starts.
Dene me zang lo rang jin la zang ma. Zene yang cha dang yi lo shuk chen. Bo chik je ne. Dene wonen chane su su gi rang gi lu yin gi lu kare ze yi ba yi na. Da ji ko de su dun ju ji cha wa chi wa zam ji la sam no ma dang wa che ne. Dene pe me si cha pa je ne. Pe me si cha pa ta jen ba. Ane pe de shuk chen bo zin ne. Rangi na nga ne pe shuk chen bo nga yi zu bo we za chen bo yi pe chak che. Yin na da rang ji ko mi zang wa sha pa pa cha chu se na dendre me zang wa zi gi kong bu zhub de ba zang jig la nga mi la ne da ja ba yi ma che wa zi di chang ma lo wa ning je mo yak bo temba zhuba zang jik yoro wa ta chak pa chen bo zi je ne me zang wa rang ji la chak pa je ne dene cha dang yi lo shuk chen bo me zi na la de la dene cha dang yi lo kon na ane dong e kang e shuk chen bo zo do
Nasrullah. So then another one is towards what is not actually clean, pure, clinging to it as clean and pure. And through that, wow, such strong attachment and aversion arise. Through clinging to what is fundamentally not clean as clean and pure. Such strong attachment and aversion towards our own bodies, for example, towards the bodies of others. We don't think about how things are just completely dependent and reliant and just designated. We don't think about that. There's such strong clinging and grasping. My body, my precious body. So precious. And then others, the bodies of others are actually unclean. Essentially a big lump, bag of flesh and blood and pus, all kinds of substances like that, just gathered together in a bag. That's actually like a human body. But not seeing it that way, not thinking in that way, we say, oh, so beautiful, so good, so real. And then comes very strong attachment, very, very strong attachment. And then it's like we're completely caught up in attachment and aversion. And that causes big suffering, big problems.
대낭지 제가 나치 저야데 또 매바지 용 되게 여바데야 하고 그러와 용거 여바데 제가 나치지 동행이 네 토메 파슨 용서 줘발라 딘데게 제가 나치지가 용 되고 그러와 내 인자네 다지 미장위랑실라 하장게 땅마 자 전부 지연데 할레베 수수 출발인바지 모시고로와 내 나지 동에베 랑지 코르베 시베 분조 데다 동에베 랑지 통하나 데스깔레 카본드 저항아서 샘진지 각슈직 데레다 아이 동에베 랑지 시베 분조데 동엘지랑지 시베 분조 베레즈나 가서 최마 ngotejina 아니 동에 숨 ngoshe바 치시 동에기 동에 저르비 동에 제바 드시지 동에 ngoshe바 치시 숨고요 아니 드치비 최대 드치지 최대라다 동에 임바지 하거나 대제네 타바트니지 로래야지 숨기도 언데 나진다 오늘 전에 시베 분조 자침으로와 징사지 열에다 가서 깔레 갖고 제사기 징사지 열에 초와 대화 네가 비지 초와 대화 되라 징사지 여와 송장 되네 다 동예배 랑지라 대화진이 차단기 로데 미치 아니 다로 정한 잠네 되니 다 맛이 받을라 다 차단 진사기 로직레 다 맞아 출사 뺨미시시난 상보 출바 임바 하고시고시 치차자리다 로로와 출바 임바 하고나 치차서 제자다 디 뺨미시 개천버린다 동에베 랑진라 대화 진 차단기 로지츠
나서나. And so in this way, we have birth, old age, sickness, death. All of these things happen. They happen. We can see them plainly. And we experience them. And, but through clinging to what is not clean as clean, thinking it's clean, it's precious and important, then that kind of seeing, that kind of clinging, seeing our own confusion, seeing how we're confused. We need to recognize that. We need to recognize the manner of our own confusion. Then there's another aspect, which is towards everything enjoyable in the world, seeing, not seeing it as the nature of suffering. So taking what has the nature of suffering and clinging onto it as blissful, pleasurable, and happiness. This is perhaps the hardest thing that we have to do, that hardest thing for us to comprehend, that things that have the nature of suffering, we cling to as pleasurable, joyful, and happiness. So to use Dharma language, classic terminology, when we talk about suffering, we talk about the three kinds of suffering: suffering of suffering, the suffering of change, and the suffering of all-pervasive suffering of everything that's compounded. And it is taught that if we can, understand the third of these, that the suffering in anything that is compounded, any compounded phenomena, then we can appreciate that. We can really give rise to the mind that yearns for liberation. And so, so the place that we're bound, where we're actually constrained and bound in samsara, it's pleasant things, isn't it? Temporary pleasures, temporary happiness. Not seeing its nature as suffering, we think it is bliss. We think it's happiness. And we give rise to attachment and aversion. And, we could say from age 25 or so until we die, we're just completely caught up in attachment and aversion to those things. And that, the way we're confused about that is quite concerning. So it's so important to understand that we are confused. It's so important that we come to understand that we are confused in this way. Understand how the mind generates attachment and aversion towards what has the fundamental nature of suffering.
태양 당지 머리바이게 nga mebala nga zini tene rang jinji shukche boy tone tene sawa songwa longju jwa longju sawa de songwa de tene chi mitina la kale shukche bo je ani zawa mambo chikzo ani chi yang menzawa mambo chikzo tra da ni Then they za chambo di pusum sobada yore ina yang ko chejenjire inde da rangi zawa namjang mewa judur menzawa namjang mewa jur shidur rangjang mewa jur shidur 시베 분소 찌샤예 람나 같이 있다 시베 분소 있지 미치 지랑기 깔리 잡잔주디 랑 그거 된다. 아니, 랑 자침보게 된다. 갈수 그러지. 짐바. 랑 진진이 된다기. 깔래 숙침을 자위한주디. 시베 분수디. 아니, 랑기 가보 요즘바지. 년년전다. 아, 코르포자다. 자체로 정말 시주기도 와. 되니 만자와 자티조와 시주기도 와. 딘데기 자다 만자 제 되니기 아니 추랑아 시주그리다. 다 추랑 시베 분수 자와지야에 지자요. 같이 마스다. 좋아질래. 맞을. 나랑랑기 좋아리디. 할리바. 당보 찍보 제임바. 당보 찍보 로그르다. 로야기 야 같이 소소 대화 대화기 대회 처럼발라 기랑기 아니 같이 속해야요. 근데지 소소소라 자 친구들이
네. That's so then also within our experience, we take what is not inherently a self or an identity as a self, as me. And so self-grasping arises towards what is not inherently a self. And then such strong self-cherishing comes from that. So strong. It makes us so tight and hard and constricted. We put so much effort in our worldly work. We make a lot of friends. We make a lot of enemies. So, of course, there's some importance to, the excellence of samsara, but it's limited. It's all limited. And so, anyone who's, close to us, people we like, our friends and so on, in the end, all of them will be destroyed. All of our enemies, anyone we don't like, they're all going to pass away. And ourself as well. Where are we going to end up? We're going to die. And so then comes the question, what true excellence is there in the world, in worldly striving? All these efforts we put forth to get stuff, for the sake of my children, for the sake of myself, my precious self. But, all of this, just, gathering the bounty, the success, striving for the success of the world, anyone close to us on our side, our spouses, our families, our friends, all of them, in the end, they're going to die. And everyone we don't like, everyone who is not close to our hearts, our enemies, they're all going to die. And everyone that we're neutral about, they're also all going to die. So this is a big question that comes up. What's really the point of striving for all that then? This is a question we need to ask ourselves. It's important to ask ourselves these kinds of questions. And we can reflect. I came into this world alone. And when I die, I will go alone. All the things I'm gathering in this life, how much can I take with me through dying? So this is a big question that we should ask ourselves.
Ngātsu tsewa chesa da, jemba chesa, zimba chesa gi, ani zubu di, ani kama ngai nane meta tang yali, ani namju susun zawa chini tizo ina, chuk chowi ne la len, ngātsu shi kabla, ro kabla, susun zawa ina, susu gi, bugo ina, susu gi, chimsang kareze ina, di tongyo na shina jaya dang, ta jukba zama jaya gi, nisu ngane, Khandar, teni lamsang ko metaya, chik chagotaya, Khandar, meba lamsang sojekdo. Tako, ko shuza chimbozi rang zima na yi yana de tsame dabo jiro. Namju rangi gao chini, zimba shu jiro. Di tsa chimbo yana, demba ina. Shiba dagarang, di me tsama yi gao chini, be topcha chigiro wa. Topcha chigmido, kenying nani, kenying dushu charudo.
Rodi.
Ayo.
Yeah. So that which we, love the most, cling to the most, the object of our strongest clinging. If they die and we put their body just 5 minutes into, a funeral pyre, cremate it, even just for 5 minutes, that corpse, whoever it is, our own children, our spouse, our own family members, 5 minutes in a funeral pyre, in a fire or a cremation, it becomes something really scary, something nauseating. So, and all of those people that we cling to, all of them will die. And so, if it was the case that what we cling to was so important in the way that we cling to it, if things had that much importance and significance, how much we give things with our clinging, then even after they died, we would treasure and want to hold and, be around the corpse for a long time. If it really had that much importance, the body of the people we're attached to. But actually, in a very short amount of time, however things happen, whether people are, cremated or any other thing, it's like it becomes the, like this. Yeah, we treat it like the worst of garbage, the corpse.
Ta tawa jiba de, di tsangma loa, dende tur koya de, chenye de, 아니지. 다 매발라 딱 듣다니. 따와 친질로 왔다. 디저래. 상마 주니엔디 짜완디 다 쓰래. 내 상마 소니. 라나 다 매발라 딱 듣다니. 딱 듣지네. 디 마릭바디. 다 디래. 가서
Mhm. So this fourth, this fourth aspect of incorrect clinging, the fourth aspect of a distorted understanding, is taking what is not inherently a self as a self. And that is like the root of all this confusion. If we say, what is really this? Where does it all come to? What is really the root of all of these different kinds of confusion? It is taking what is not inherently a self as a self, as ourself. That's really ignorance. If we're wondering, what is our ignorance? It's that.
단 디 마치 마릭바디게 수수기 답해지 뒤수 대인 바쳐야 그봐
Right.
칼라
This.
올라서 딱 한다라 마릭바이게 애니 가족이 미셀라 촐라 칸디스 땅게미
Mhm.
다 릭바 이시 라야디 디 갑디 다 가리 딱도 짐바이게 디 동에 가르치기도 자와 가르치기도 가서 걸어라 네디 자송아 다 단다 다 매발라 다 표현 가르도 다 매봤다나 다 로또 가르치기도 되니 배 찬주기 씀지 잠바다 제벨로 공바이나 되니 진진기 식 맡아봐 간지차기도 되니 맞아 인공제라 저는 제고
Mhm.
양가 마음도 나 건다
So it seems we're running short on time. So in any case, we can contemplate, from ignorance, what kind of problems come in our life, how much disturbance comes in our life from ignorance. And then we can also discuss the opposite of ignorance, Rigpa Yeshe, wisdom awareness.
릭바 이시랑 더 말이다
That's all.
간다 말이바 릭반으로 붙을라잖아
Rigpa Yeshe
마무
Jabos.
마디
That's all. So maybe not.
전담 땜바디 야 릭바 이시랑 말이 릭바 이 적신이 거리 릭바다 이시다 저지 말이야
That's all.
너
That's all.
이나양
Dundam
전담 땜바
That's all. So we'll not use that term, Rigpa Yeshe. Strike that. We're not talking here about the Rigpa Yeshe that's described in the Great Perfection teachings. That's not exactly what's being talked about. Let's just say the ultimate truth.
식 나서 릭바 이시라야다 양 아주 쌤 탁지ngo줘야 가라 양데 다니 대소리 내가 자청 부들어라
That's all.
근데 다그 당지 말이고 다음에 똑비시라 다 매베지
That's all.
전담베지 동반이지 어디 시에 치들어와
That's all.
야
Because that particular term, Rigpa Yeshe, or pure wisdom awareness, is used in a very specific context to point directly at the true nature of mind in that context. And that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is prajna, the insight or wisdom that arises into the absence of self, into emptiness. In other words, the ultimate truth. And so in this context, that's how we're discussing it. And so understanding how clinging to the sense of self leads to suffering, understanding what kinds of activities we do with clinging to self, how samsara works like that. And then also understanding the benefits of seeing the absence of self, the benefits of realizing the absence of self, the extraordinary benefits, the courage, the bodhicitta, the love, the compassion, developing qualities that nothing can destroy from outside. So that will be the topic we'll discuss this afternoon. And I apologize, I think I said a bit too much.
Chanju simju rinpo je ma je pa na je ju je je wa nyang ba me ba yang kone gondo pe ba shu Jambe boy chidar jimbo dang kundo zombo deyan tijin teda kunje jisu dalo ji gewan deda tamje rabdo ngo tisum shibe jawa tamje ji ngoy gangla chodo ngo tajin gibe zowa digen jang zombo chuje rabdo ngo chen Sanjin Jindo Midem Babaye, Dogen Nanda Jinla Jubareshu. Nyandaya me Khandro Gorbe Jingane Penda Dewa Malin Jungwe Jere Zewa Tinzi Jazu Jabe Side Pardo Tenjuru.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I've just got a couple of announcements to make. I was wondering if the following people can come and meet me at lunchtime. So if Somo, Sumpton, and Steve can hang out on the stage, I will talk to you once I'm done making announcements. And then can I have Helen, Deirdre, and Christina meet me at the registration table? Can I also get my registration table team to meet me down there as well, including Amanda, Lauren, and Mary Beth? Can I also have my ushers for tomorrow morning, Breege, Massimo, and Jarek at the registration table? And if Angela could find me at the registration table as well, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks so much, everyone.
Samden la. Losang samden la. Bebe trapedi. Superonance. Samden la. That was it.
Okay.
Petsare. Oh, Pegido, Tatare. He's coming.